Stephen, you mentioned another thing the other day about uh, companies moving to Texas from Delaware. What laws caused that? Why is that important?
Well, like a lot of things that happened in the last year, Elon had a big part of that. So Elon Musk had his compensation package. There was a lawsuit brought by some Tesla shareholders saying that the package was crazy and he was basically controlling the board and paying himself. That's one version of the story. The other version of the story is he took a massive amount of risk. Basically, was being compensated based on how much market value he grew, and he grew $600 billion in market value of Tesla. And so he was paid $56 billion. But there was a case in front of the Delaware court, and the question was, is Elon a controlling shareholder? And if so, what standard should apply in reviewing his pay package, and was the board in compliance with that? The court came out, by the way, Elon owned about 20 some percent, so he's not a majority owner. And he has one board seat, and the rest of the board members are independent directors. The court came out that Elon was, in fact, a controlling stockholder because of his ability to actually influence the board. It was like the supernatural powers of Elon. And that therefore kicked it into a standard of review under Delaware law called entire fairness. And under the entire fairness standard, the directors were not found to be as independent as they should have been, and so the package was cut. And Elon famously tweeted out, or I guess he doesn't like to say tweet anymore. He says posted out. No one should incorporate their businesses in Delaware, and that kind of set off a situation. So he reincorporated Tesla to Texas. He reincorporated SpaceX to Texas. Meta, who owns Facebook and Instagram, they are reportedly contemplating moving to Texas. Another company called TripAdvisor, you probably have, when you're planning those vacations, you probably have looked at them. They actually went and got a shareholder vote to move to Nevada out of Delaware, and so there's been a whole lot of scrutiny about this. Delaware derives a third of its state revenue from incorporation, 1/3, and so obviously when they hear that their cash cow is at risk, they sprung into action. The end of March, I mean, it happened so fast. They adopted, the legislature adopted, and the governor signed new legislation that effectively would have completely changed the outcome of the Musk case, for starters. In order to be a controlling stockholder, you either have to own 50% of the shares, or you have to own at least a third, and then have all this indicia of undue influence. So Elon would have been per se not a controlling stockholder. They made a number of other changes designed to make it easier for boards, frankly, to get some clarity on when they're going through a process, what steps they have to go through. The courts had come up with this standard, and everything's named after a case in Delaware. So it was the MFW standard. If you wanted to do a take private, you had to, at the beginning, start with an independent committee and a majority of the minority shareholder vote. And so they still keep that standard for true take privates, but other conflicted transactions, it's now you can do it as long as you do one of those two things. Either have an independent committee review it or submit it to a majority of the minority. That's a big change in the law. And the last thing they did was change the independence test for directors. There's a presumption now under Delaware law that someone who is independent under the NYSE or NASDAQ rules is in fact independent unless there's a substantial showing of the lack of independence. So I think in many ways they probably stopped the bleeding. Now you talk about Texas, our laws are under change as well. We have recently adopted a business court designed after the Delaware courts, where sophisticated practitioners are appointed by the governor to hear cases, and they can, render rulings. They can also do something Delaware cannot, which is give advisory opinions. So if a company wants to know, hey, do you think this committee is in fact independent? They can seek an advisory opinion from the court, get that kind of hammered out, and then it's really easy to go forward with a transaction with that committee. So Texas is doing a number of things to try to encourage it. And, it is a very friendly jurisdiction. And I do think, the question is, did Delaware go so far that future companies are really going to think twice about going to Delaware? I think they did enough to kind of stave that off, but I would bet you'll see more and more companies not going the Delaware route and choosing places like Texas. Other people are considering Nevada, although I think there's a negative connotation with Nevada, but it's a bit of a race to the bottom with them. They're arguably too lenient to the point that I think some shareholders would be concerned about incorporating Nevada. But I do think you're going to see more and more future companies incorporate in states like Texas.